Hello everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you're continuing to enjoy the daily numerology and astrology. I'm just going to say at the beginning that from this point on in the astrology and the numerology, things kind of continue to get more and more intense. And I know everybody looks at me like, are you kidding me? Like it just is continuing to get intense, and I'm like, yeah. So I want everybody to contemplate for a second and go back in time. And I started warning about all of this stuff happening in 2016 and saying, we're coming into this really difficult astrological cycle, and to do everything like internally to prepare and to have stability in your core, because everything in your core is going to start rocking more intensely and more intensely. And it's continued to build, and I know everybody is really sick of me saying, it's getting worse and it's getting worse and it's getting worse, and everybody thinks there's no way it can get worse, and then it does get worse. And so, I had a comment from a client the other day that had seen me a while ago, and she said, so many times I really didn't like listening to your astrology at all, but I now really appreciate it because it really did give me some heads up, and so it gave me some preparation. So I want everyone to remember that I am not the gloomy doomy psychic. I'm a Leo. I'm a super optimist. I believe all these things happen for a reason, one way or the other. I believe that what's happening right now is what is supposed to be happening so that we can grow and evolve, and we are absolutely at one of the most critical evolutionary spots in consciousness that we've been at, and I believe we can make the leap. I absolutely believe we can make the leap, but to do that we all have to work together, and to do that we also have to be ready and prepared, so we don't keep doing this knee-jerk reaction when one more thing happens and one more stress happens. So my husband has this great philosophy, and he said life is about one more thing. And when you stop being able to cope with the one more thing, that's when you start shutting down, and that's when you actually start to die, because you have to embrace what is happening, and you have to embrace life, and you have to figure out how to keep moving forward no matter what. And I know it's incredibly difficult, and I know people are really hurting, and I know because today even I went to the grocery store in my N95 mask and my gloves, and I recognize that the people who put together food and organize food and process food aren't working, and so shelves are getting empty, and that can kind of start to create panics. And I know there's already been really long lines in places like Texas and other cities, and I live in a small town, so it wasn't as obvious until I went into the grocery store today, and it was like, whoa, okay. And so I said to the checkout guy, I said, so did you find everything you needed? And I started laughing, and I said, you're joking, right? And I said, there's a lot of bare shelves. And he said, I said, do you get trucks in? Are the trucks not coming in? He goes, no, we get trucks every single day. And that's when I realized that certain things, like you don't have the farmers picking the crops. There's nobody to pick the crops. There's nobody to process the crops, to package the crops. So I just want everybody to start to realize, like, you might really want to look at going out to the farmers, if you have farmers nearby, and saying, can I buy some of your produce? And I bet you they'd be thrilled to death to buy the produce, because it's sitting there waiting to go, and it's not really going anywhere. So check your local areas to see what farmers might have something that's available that you could buy from them directly, or look at farmers markets. And I know we can't have farmers markets right now because we're in a COVID thing. So, but who were the people who were doing that? Who are the people who buy food for restaurants that they can't get rid of the food because the restaurants aren't open? So start to look around, start to ask some questions, and so that you can find the things that you want. Because I think that when the store shelves start getting empty, people begin to panic. And I was a little startled myself, to be really honest. So today, April 19th, 2020. If you add all those numbers up, you get an 18. If you add the 1 and the 8 together, you get a 9. The 9 is the number of completion. It is a number of intuition, psychic ability, mysticism, and magic. It's a number that is asking you to pay attention to the subtle frequencies and that little spidey sense that's inside. So when I dropped in, how I do this is I kind of drop into the number and I know what the number means, and then I kind of translate it and go, okay, how does that number translate through my nervous system today? And how it translated through was enough is enough. And here again, we have a great degree of tension mounting, and there is a rising upset that people are suffering and do not have what they need to continue. And the stimulus checks that came in were not enough. It was not a completion. So this number today is looking at the incompletions as much as it's looking at the completions. And I just know human nature. Like, this pattern cannot last much longer without there being a rapid decline and aggressive reactions from the masses. And the number 9 can indicate that some are hitting a breaking point. Such moments can and will eventually ignite into a firestorm of radical and sometimes violent change. Perhaps that is what we need in order to turn this toxic tide. I really believe in consciousness to the best of our ability, and I know that there's a global meditation that's happening today, the 19th of April, at 11 a.m., no matter where you are, to meditate on what you want this new world to be, and all of us together, energetically coming together, create a vibration that will help turn us out of this hate and this fear and all this kind of thing into something better. I always pray for calmer minds and brighter minds to create reasonable pathways through such times, but there is nothing about this time that is reasonable. We have never been here before in our lifetime, and I would hope we will never be here again, but the present path we are on leads clearly in this direction. And I pray for a side path to be created by all of us, and maybe by someone of great inspiration and power, to influence and help us escape this hell that has been manifesting from our own greed and unconsciousness. Now, if we look at the astrology, once again, the astrology today is not necessarily the big problem. It's the global astrology when you're looking at this wider, bigger picture. So we're kind of narrowing it down to this little bit here, but we are culminating towards a big boom that will happen in June and July. So I want everybody to be really prepared for that. And again, it's so hard being a psychic because people are like, well, you didn't really predict blah, 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 blah. And, I kind of laugh because, it's always hard to be a psychic and predict something when you've never had it as a reference point or as an experience for yourself. And, I had said before, we're going towards some sort of global world war. Well, we're having a war with a coronavirus at the moment, and it's a world war. It's a world war that is fighting against this particular virus. So, I always say, listen to all psychics, including me, and kind of try and see this bigger overview picture rather than getting down into these nitsy-ditzy detail-y things. Because, what we see is the pattern. We see the pattern unfolding. And I was right. We are having a world war. It's just with the virus, which is kind of cool. So, all right. Now, the moon continues to be in Pisces on Sunday, so this is perfect for exploring your spiritual side, and it's a great time for this global meditation that's happening. The tone of this moon changes, because even though it's in this really sensitive, intuitive, deeply perceptive sign of Pisces, the sun has moved into earthly Taurus, and that translates into practical spirituality and practical magic, or how to become a practical visionary. So what would that look like to you? There's the meditation. Like, what does that look like to you? What does practical spirituality look like to you? What does practical magic in this time look like to you? And how can you be a practical, grounded, stable visionary? Not some airy-fairy and evangelical, over-the-top, visionary, but a person that can actually help everyone in the day-to-day reality. The moon conjuncts Neptune, and it brings a type of hypersensitivity and a sense of emotional imbalance. Truth will seem sort of wishy-washy and inconsistent today. The feelings of loneliness are strong and also seem very, very personal. Reach out and touch someone that you love because they really might need it today. The sun goes into Taurus this morning. A little fixed earth energy is going to be helpful. It makes the practical and the material issues bloom into the harsh and brightening light of spring. Do your very best to be deliberate in your actions, think things through methodically, and know that patience is essential. The weakness is that those with a stubborn streak are going to put their feet down and refuse to budge. Security issues seem to be failing and bringing up fear and anger, and we are building towards an explosion of rage. And if this continues much longer without financial help from the government, it might be really bad. While this is a time to heal and forgive, there are also so many that might find that extremely challenging. You know, it's sometimes hard to heal and forgive when you don't have enough food. And it's hard to let go when you're feeling in so much lack. So kind of know that this is a test a little bit. Now, the quote I had for today, I was literally feeling how, I feel like we are the people, the worker bees, not the super wealthy, but the worker bees are kind of like miners in a mine. And I feel like the mine shaft has collapsed. And we're waiting for somebody to rescue us. We're trapped in this darkness and we're waiting for somebody to rescue us. And, you know, these other miners over here are, you know, doing a side shaft trying to get to us. But there's this feeling of like, is anyone coming? Is anyone coming to get us in any way? So this was the inspiration for my poem today. We are miners in a collapsed mine, trapped in darkness, covered in grime. Slaves to the masters who want all the gold. They only care that we do what we are told. And now in the darkness, the air becomes thin. The panic creeps in, getting under our skin. We lie to ourselves thinking they care if we get out. We listen for rescue and call out and shout. But no one comes because they do not care. With black eyes into the darkness we stare. Realizing now that we are pawns in their game, worth nothing if we cannot help them gain. Shocking to know how little we are worth. They will take no risks nor move any dirt. It is cheaper to leave us here in the end. A tragic loss that for us will have no end. All right, thanks everybody. Now, I'm doing another Peru story just because this seems to be the role at the moment. So Peru has this incredible ability to open hearts in a way that I have not seen happen consistently anywhere else in the world, and I've traveled quite a bit in the world. And perhaps it's because the Quechua people believe that the Andes are the heart chakra of the world, while the Himalaya are the crown chakra of the world. I have seen the happiest people in Peru. While they have nothing, they are completely happy. Perhaps it's because they can grow their own food, and while that food might be simple, it is enough. So between the potatoes, the quinoa, and the maize, it is filled with proper nutrition necessary to grow strong bodies, and their bodies are incredibly strong. I love picking up the children because they smell like dirt. You know, not stinky dirt, just dirt like a potato dirt, and you just want to like nuzzle your nose into them because they just feel so authentically earthy and real. So I would walk into the villages, and like I've said in some of the other stories, 20 plus children start following me everywhere. And I love to give things out to the children and the adults. And I would come to Peru with 2 big suitcases filled with things for the children, such as pens, pencils, Bic lighters, cheap watches, colorful hair elastics, stickers, crayons, sidewalk chalk, balls, plastic dinosaurs, small dolls, soccer balls that are deflated, all sorts of things. Each day, I would put a variety of these things into my backpack, and I would hand things out throughout the day. Once the children realized what might come their way, it would become like the storm of children, and they would push you into these great Incan walls so they could be first in line. And I would tell them in Spanish to get in line, and they would dutifully line up, and each one would get something. Occasionally, adults would get in the lines, and they would say in Spanish, "Mother, mother, I have 2 children. Can I please have 2 pencils for my babies?" And I, of course, would give them more than that. Anyone who was giving became the embodiment of Pachamama, the mother, the earth mother. And since I'm not really a mother in this lifetime, it was a special feeling that all these children were in some way mine. I believe that we are all connected in the circles of love and giving. One day I had a very large group, and I was handing things out, and at the very end I literally had nothing left. I mean, I had gotten to the point I'd given away my water, my granola bars, I had given everything I could spare away. And here was this very old woman in front of me with no teeth left in her head, but a bright smile. Realizing that I had nothing left that I could offer, I reached down to the ground and I picked up a plain stone and I held it to my heart and I put all my love and care into that stone and I offered it to her. She smiled, recognizing that I had nothing left. But then she did something so unexpected. She took the stone from me as if I had offered her the most precious jewel. She closed her eyes and she held it to her heart, and in that moment I recognized that she understood that I had given her my energy, and that was something special and precious to her. And she walked away happy and content. There was an ancient soul who understood the power of energy and the gift that was in the stone. To her, it was worth more than the Bic lighter. What would our world be like if everyone operated from that place of reverence and respect of the energies that are exchanged in life? I believe we would have a beautiful world. I wish all Americans could have such a moment when we recognize that it is not the value of the gift, but the emotion and the energy that is being exchanged in the gift that matters the most. We are all here to share that precious self that we are with others. To be as authentic as possible. To give as much as we can in moments, because the Divine Mother is moving through us to help all of her children. So one of the things that's challenging in the social media world is that there are people out there that are just so hurt and angry and damaged and blaming and pointing fingers and are just searching out a reason to lash out at people who are simply trying to give their gift and simply trying to help other people. And so, I watch a lot of things, and it doesn't mean that I agree with them, but what I try and do is I try and look past the information or the substance, and I try and feel into the heart of that person and what is important to them and what they're trying to share. And I try and take that, even if maybe the specifics of it are not necessarily what I believe, but I recognize that, their heart is trying to say something and they're trying to touch. And I wish we could turn this tide of hate. I wish we could listen from our hearts rather than from our minds, where we want to nitpick and say, well, that's wrong right there, and that's not true there, and nah. I think it's so important right now that we shift out of that blaming or trying to find fault and drop into a place to listen from our heart and to let people give the gift that they're trying to give, even if they're maybe not the best at figuring out how to give that gift. Okay, there you go. So thanks everybody for listening.